Imagine returning a lost wallet to its owner, only to discover that the person behind it holds the key to completely transforming your life. What happens when one simple act of kindness unlocks a future you never saw coming? Stay tuned to find out how a humble taxi driver's fate takes an unexpected turn and changes his world forever. You won't believe where this journey leads. Watch till the end and prepare to be shocked. A taxi driver, James, was finishing his night shift. He had driven countless passengers through the streets, but tonight was different. As he neared the end of his route, he noticed something on the passenger seat. A leather wallet, its edges worn with use, lying innocently between the cracks of the seat. James paused, his fingers brushing against the wallet's smooth surface. It was heavy, packed with something, perhaps money or cards. He opened it cautiously, eyes scanning the contents. A driver's license. The name on the card read Lily Barnes, a name he didn't recognize. There were credit cards, some cash, and a small note tucked inside. The note had the faint scent of lavender, almost comforting. It read, "To the one who finds this, thank you for caring enough to return it." His mind raced. Who was she? What had caused her to leave the wallet behind? It had to be someone important, he thought. James couldn't just keep the wallet. No matter how tired he was, he needed to return it. The next morning, he carefully traced the address from the license and set off to find her. The sun was just rising. As he arrived at the address, an office building. It looked tall, modern, with glass windows reflecting the early morning light. James felt a knot in his stomach. He wasn't used to being in places like this, places where suits and polished shoes walked past in a rush. But there he was, standing at the front of the building, clutching the wallet tightly. He walked inside, and the receptionist greeted him with a smile. "I'm here to return a lost wallet," he said, feeling his nerves tighten. The receptionist's smile faltered for a moment, and she looked at him curiously. "I'll let Ms. Barnes know," she said, picking up the phone. James sat in the lobby, his hands sweating. The air felt thicker now, the buzz of fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above him. Minutes passed before a woman in a sharp suit approached him. She was tall, confident, her eyes focused intently on him. "Are you James?" she asked, her voice calm yet piercing. "Yes," he replied, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "Thank you for returning my wallet," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, and for a moment, he felt an odd spark of recognition, but he couldn't place it. As they exchanged pleasantries, the woman smiled warmly. "Your honesty is rare," she said softly, her gaze softening. James was unsure of what to say. She was clearly someone important, but he had no idea who she truly was. Then she surprised him. "I'm Lily Barnes," she said, her voice a bit more personal now. The name clicked in his mind. Lily Barnes, the CEO of a rising tech company. Her company had made waves in the business world recently. Her wealth and influence were the talk of the town. James felt a rush of disbelief. He was holding the wallet of a woman who could probably buy the entire neighborhood. But instead of handing him a reward or praise, she simply smiled again. Her smile was warm, genuine. "You're a good man, James," she said. "I've been thinking of a new initiative for my company. It's about rewarding kindness, integrity, and the people who make a difference." James wasn't sure where this was going. "You have no idea," Lily continued, "but I'm about to offer you something that will change your life." His heart skipped a beat. What was she talking about? "I've been looking for someone with your kind of heart," she said, pausing. "Someone who understands that it's not just about business. It's about people, and I want you to join me. Become a part of my team." The words hung in the air. James could barely breathe. This woman, this powerful CEO, was offering him a chance to step into a world he never dreamed of. He blinked, his mind struggling to keep up. Was this real? The gentle hum of the office suddenly seemed distant, and his thoughts swirled. "Come work with me, James," Lily said again, her voice calm and steady, her eyes locked onto his with unwavering certainty. And in that moment, James realized his life was about to change forever. His heart raced, uncertainty mingling with excitement. "Why me?" James finally managed to ask, his voice shaky. Lily smiled softly, as if she had anticipated the question. "Because," she said, her gaze steady and kind, "what you did wasn't just about returning a wallet. It was about integrity, trust, and seeing the humanity in others. We need more of that in the world, especially in business." James felt his chest tighten. Her words were a balm to his worn soul. For years, he'd driven countless people through the city, never imagining his kindness would be noticed, let alone rewarded. "But I'm just a taxi driver," he muttered, still in disbelief. "Not anymore," Lily replied with a wink. "You're someone who understands people, and that's what makes you invaluable." The weight of her words settled on him, but the reality still felt surreal. Could he really step into a world of high-stakes business, boardrooms, and corporate deals? His whole life had been spent navigating the streets, not the skyscrapers. Lily placed the wallet back into his hands, her touch lingering for a moment. "You don't have to decide now," she said gently. "Take some time, think it over. But know this: sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the greatest transformations." As she turned to leave, James stood frozen in place. The sound of her heels echoing down the polished floor seemed to reverberate in his chest. The doors of the building closed behind her, but the weight of the moment lingered, heavy yet filled with hope. For the first time in years, James felt a spark of possibility. A taxi driver who had simply done what was right had been given a chance to change his life. But more than that, he had been seen. Not for his job, not for his station in life, but for his heart. As the sun climbed higher, James left the office building, the wallet still clutched in his hand. He stepped into the world outside, where everything seemed just a little brighter. The streets, the noise, the people, all of it felt different now. And in the distance, he could almost hear a new path calling his name. His future, uncertain and yet full of promise, was now in his hands. As James walked down the steps of the building, the weight of Lily's offer still lingered in his mind. The city felt different, somehow more alive. Every honking car, every passerby, every street corner was buzzing with possibility. But James wasn't sure if he could really take that leap. He had always been content in his world: his taxi, the passengers, the simple routines that brought him comfort. What if he wasn't enough for this new world Lily was offering? The doubt gnawed at him. And yet, there was something stirring within him, a quiet whisper that urged him to believe. He stood still for a moment, letting the bustle of the city fade away. The quiet hum of his thoughts was the only sound that remained. It was then that he realized he didn't have to be anyone else. He didn't have to suddenly become something he wasn't. Lily hadn't asked him to change. She had seen him for who he was: a man who cared, who believed in doing what was right. The skills he had developed driving for years, listening to passenger stories, navigating the unpredictable nature of the city, it wasn't so far removed from the skills needed in the business world. James felt a deep breath settle into his chest, as if a door he hadn't known was closed had just opened. Maybe, just maybe, he was ready to walk through it. The thought both terrified and exhilarated him, and for the first time in a long time, he smiled. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, a familiar yellow taxi pulled up to the curb. It was his car, his constant companion. He climbed in, the leather seats soft beneath him, and his hands gripped the wheel. For a moment, he simply sat there, letting the steady hum of the engine settle his nerves. Then, with a deep breath, he pulled away, his heart set on what lay ahead, the road before him stretched out, full of twists, turns, and unknowns. But James was no longer afraid. Whatever came next, he was ready to meet it. As the city's skyline melted into the horizon, James found himself not just driving through the streets. but through his thoughts as well. The steady hum of the engine was like a heartbeat reminding him that life moved forward, whether you were ready or not. His mind drifted to the offer Lily had given him. He wasn't sure what the future held. But for the first time, he felt like it wasn't something to fear, that it was something to embrace. Driving past the familiar sights, the corners where he'd spent countless hours picking up passengers, he realized just how much he had seen and learned. Each person who sat in the back of his taxi had left him with a little piece of their story. A grandmother visiting her grandchildren, a young man nervously heading to his first job interview, a couple on their way to a wedding. He'd been a quiet observer of their lives, and now it seemed as though his own story was about to take a new turn, that it wasn't just about a job offer anymore, that it was about possibility, the kind of possibility that had been waiting for him all along. That night, James lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the stars out slickering like tiny beacons of hope. That his mind kept coming back to Lily's words. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the greatest transformations. In a way, he had already taken a risk. He had returned a lost wallet, without any expectation of reward. He had simply done the right thing, and it had changed everything. The thought of walking into a corporate world, a world where he didn't belong, still felt overwhelming. But what if he wasn't meant to just fit into it? What if he could bring something new to the table, something the business world was missing? He didn't need to know everything right now. He didn't need to have all the answers. What mattered was that he was willing to try. The next morning, with a new sense of purpose, James sat at his kitchen table, the wallet resting beside him. It had been returned, but it had also given him something in return, an opportunity. Picking up the phone, he dialed the number Lily had given him. The phone rang once, then twice. When she answered, her voice was warm and welcoming. "I'm ready," James said, his voice steady now. There was a brief pause on the other end, and then Lily's voice softened. "I knew you would be." And just like that, James felt the weight of the decision lift from his shoulders. The road ahead would be uncertain, but it was his to walk. He hung up the phone, a smile spreading across his face. It was the beginning of something new, and this time, he was ready to take the wheel. The days that followed felt like a blur, but in the best possible way. James found himself thinking less about his doubts and more about the new chapter unfolding before him. Every morning, he woke up with a sense of purpose, the same routine of driving, but now with a quiet excitement simmering beneath the surface. Each shift behind the wheel was different. Somehow, he wasn't just transporting passengers anymore. He was preparing for a future that was calling his name. Lily had given him a new perspective on what he could achieve, not just for himself, but for others. She had shown him that kindness, integrity, and a genuine connection with people mattered more than any resume or suit. One afternoon, a week after their meeting, James received an email. It was from Lily. Subject: the next step. He opened it eagerly, his heart pounding. The email was simple, yet filled with promise. "James, I'm excited to introduce you to the team. We've got a lot of work ahead, and I think you're going to bring something unique to our company. Let's meet tomorrow at the office to discuss your role." His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he reread the words. His mind raced. He was about to step into a whole new world, one that seemed far removed from his humble beginnings. But deep down, James knew this was more than just an opportunity. It was a chance to contribute in a way he never imagined possible. The next day, as he stood outside the sleek office building, the same one he had visited weeks earlier, James felt a deep breath fill his lungs. His nerves were there, but they didn't feel like fear anymore. They felt like anticipation. Inside, the team welcomed him with open arms, and for the first time, he saw himself as part of something bigger than just a job. They didn't see him as just a taxi driver. They saw him as someone with insight, someone who could offer a fresh perspective. The work wasn't easy, but James had always been willing to put in the effort, And as the days passed, he found himself not only adapting but thriving. His unique ability to understand people, to listen, and empathize quickly set him apart from others. He was the one who could break through the walls, who could find solutions by simply connecting with those around him. Lily took notice of his contributions and began involving him in more important projects. It wasn't long before James became a trusted advisor on key initiatives, his opinions valued by those who had once been strangers to him. But despite his success, he never lost sight of where he came from. Every evening, when the office cleared and the quiet of the city settled in, James would sit in his car, reflecting on how far he had come. He still drove his taxi sometimes, just for the comfort of it, the hum of the engine, the familiarity of the road. It grounded him. It reminded him that no matter where life took him, the kindness he had shown, the simple act of returning a lost wallet, had led him to a future he couldn't have dreamed of. He wasn't just part of a company now. He was part of a mission to make the world a little more compassionate, a little more human. And each day, as he looked ahead, he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. Months passed, and James found himself living a life he had once only dreamed about. His role at the company had grown, and with it, his confidence. He wasn't just the man who drove a taxi anymore. He was someone who had built bridges, connected with people on a deeper level, and helped shape something meaningful. Lily, who had once been a stranger, had become a mentor and a friend. She had trusted him when no one else would have, and now, her faith in him was becoming a foundation for something much bigger than both of them. One crisp evening, James sat in the small office he had made his own, looking out over the city. The view from the top of the building was breathtaking. The streets below, once so familiar to him, now seemed like a distant memory, a reminder of how far he had come. As he turned to pick up the phone, the words he had once imagined, "I'm just a taxi driver," seemed so far away. He wasn't that man anymore. The phone rang, and Lily's voice greeted him warmly. "I wanted to check in, James. How are you feeling about everything?" she asked. "I'm grateful," James replied simply, the weight of his words grounding him. "Grateful for the chance you gave me, and for how far I've come." Lily's laughter echoed through the line. "You've earned everything, James, every step of the way." They spoke for a while longer, discussing projects and ideas. But as the conversation came to an end, something shifted. James felt a quiet sense of peace settle within him. He had come to realize that this journey wasn't just about a career, it was about becoming the best version of himself. It wasn't about the title, the office, or the perks. It was about the connections he had made, the people he had touched, and the values he had carried with him from the very beginning. As the call ended and James set the phone down, he turned back to the window, his eyes taking in the vast city below. The taxi was parked just outside, waiting for him. In a strange way, it felt like home, the place where his story had begun, where his heart had first found its rhythm. But now, James knew he had a new road to travel, a road filled with endless possibilities, where kindness, honesty, and hard work would always light the way. And with one last glance at the city stretching before him, James smiled. The future was his to create, and this time he was ready to embrace it with open arms. The end.